Oh, did I get a double no-scope crossbow? I think I fucking did. Hey Battlefield YouTubers, as you're probably noticing right about now, this isn't Battlefield 4, it's not Battlefield Hardline. Where's Battlefield Hardline? Well, that'll be in a few days when the big push is to put as much footage out as possible. The big YouTubers, of course, already have it just because they get, special access to it. And even some of the Xbox One people who got the early access EA thing, they're already putting it up. Of course, I'm going to have to wait a few more days, and there's going to be a shitload of them. There's going to be gun reviews, there's going to be all kinds of stuff. But for right now, I thought, you know what? I want to try something a little different. To be truthful, I've been kind of bored of Battlefield 4 for a little while now. I haven't been playing it much. And I basically thought, you know what? I'm going to be pretty darn rusty coming up when Hardline drops. I want to play something, get my skills up, get my, fingers moving, warm myself up a little bit. And I thought, you know what? Battlefield 3 is probably closer to Battlefield Hardline than Battlefield 4 was. And I don't mean that in a negative way at all, because to be totally truthful, Battlefield 3 is a better game. Okay, I'm not saying Battlefield 4 was a bad game. It was very flawed, and it still is a very flawed game. But I did have quite a bit of fun with it. As much fun as I had in Battlefield 3? No. Right here is one good example, Scavenger. I know it wasn't a very popular mode, but it's easily one of my top 2 favorite modes. I loved Rush. Another thing Battlefield 4 really screwed up. Battlefield 3 wasn't flawless on it, but it played very well most of the time, assuming there was no stupid 64-player servers. That kind of ruined some things. And a couple of the maps weren't the best for it, but overall it was very, very good. And I absolutely adored Scavenger mode that I'm playing right here. It's in the first part of this video. It's going to be a long video if you haven't noticed already. But Scavenger was great, and it let you try out all kinds of guns. It gave you such a small magazine in each one of them. Maybe 2 magazines depending on the weapon. And the P90 had 1. And a couple other ones had 2. Just depending on what you used. And most of the time you had to depend on that pistol. And I absolutely loved that. There was a little bit of strategy involved. Sticking near some weapons, yet capturing the points so your team could win. This is easily one of my favorite game modes in any first-person shooter ever. And I was so unfortunate to see people not pick it up. I think it had a lot to do with, people not wanting to, drop their AEK or M16A3 and pick up something else. Which makes me sad, because Battlefield 3 had quite a few good weapons other than those 2. But people never did use anything else. Occasionally FAMAS or USAS, basically when they're overpowered. I use basically everything. I use everything quite a bit. Which, obviously, if you've been following Hardline, you've noticed there's not a big, giant, massive list of guns on it, which isn't the worst thing in the world. I do like variety, but as long as they all feel different or play different, that'd be fine with me. Of course, in Battlefield 4, they were like, add more weapons, as much weapons as possible, and that's cool. I mean, as long as they play different and they, there are actually some real differences in it, that would have been pretty cool. But what you have is quite a few bland guns and quite a few weapons that just can't compete in many situations. And basically, in each one of them, there was 2 very good ones, a 3rd and 4th that might not have been too bad, but the rest of them were somewhat of a joke. Now, if I was playing a fairly even team or playing a game where, we easily were better than the other one, I would change up my weapons every single match. But quite a few people, they just stuck to their, ace or AK or whatever it was, AWS. And I wish there was some way I could see what weapons have killed me, just because I'm sure there's at least a dozen weapons I have never been killed by. Now, that was either because the weapon was just poor in performance. Like, how many of you have been killed by a JS2? I would use it on occasion, but I have never been killed by it. And sometimes it was just because the achievement, it was a little bit hard or a little bit stupid. Because how many of you have been killed by a UMP9? I have never. I have never even seen it. And obviously, if you were paying attention here, you notice I picked 2 engineer weapons. Just because, guess what? Carbines were available to all classes, and no one used the PDW hardly at all. It was really rare. The AS Val sometimes, sure. The MPX, you know what? Occasionally I would see that one. P90, pretty rare. The only reason people use that because it, you know, had 90 rounds. It was just too weak. And the only really good one was a CZ3A1. That was a very good gun. It was it slaughtered tons of people, but that was the only one because guess what? Carbines. Now in Battlefield 3, it was a little better just because you had PDWs as all kit weapons. That means you know you could use a P90 on whatever you wanted, or like here I'm using M5K or MP5, whatever you want to call it. They, I guess, licensing reasons they can call us by the right name. But this was an amazing weapon for this close quarter stuff, and you know what? You could use it in any class. That was freaking amazing. I loved it. Of course, you almost had to run support unless you're running with a support because it chewed through ammo. But the carbines should have been engineer, and the PDW should have been all kit, in my opinion, in Battlefield 4. And once you get past the regular weapons not being balanced as well as they could have, you got the explosive spam. Obviously, if you played Battlefield 4, the explosive spam is great. It is better than it used to be. I'll grant you that, but it's still too much. How many of you started around, especially like in Rush, and got UCAV'd immediately? I know I have quite a few times. And the same thing as the mortars. The remote mortar, that was just an awful idea as far as I'm concerned. It's, you know, cool if you want to be the guy that is doing the mortaring, but if you're, you know, just trying to run around and you get randomly mortared, it's really annoying because that guy, even if you try to mortar him back, all you've done is take away his position and not killed him, and he's going to be right back in no time, hitting you with another mortar or UCAV, who knows what. It got really annoying, and the airburst, it had really good intentions of, you know, taking out those snipers that want to hang on top of the buildings, but often got just abused, or they spammed it, and it got really annoying to me after a while. Now next on why Battlefield apparently is better than Battlefield 4 is because the level design is quite a bit better, in my opinion. Not every level, because Armored Kill, you know, at first I thought, you know, well, hey, when I use vehicles, Armored Kill is going to be pretty good, until I found out it just wasn't very good. Other than that, Battlefield 3 has some really good DLCs. This one is pretty controversial, especially when it came out, just because it's so infantry focused. And of course now, guess what? The whole damn new Battlefield game coming out is infantry focused. But it's not just that. Aftermath was freaking awesome. That was my favorite DLC of all of them. I absolutely love Aftermath and the scavenger mode, like I said, that came with it. But Battlefield 4, I mean, it has some good DLC. It has some good maps, too, in the base game, but not nearly as many as Battlefield 3 did. And the reason why is they seem to balance more modes in different maps than Battlefield 4 ever tried. Battlefield 4 obviously was extremely heavy conquest, and, you know, I understand that because that's the bread and butter, basically, of the Battlefield series. That's what it's always had. Rush has been big in the last couple of them, but they basically, you know, just forgot about it. And that was a big mistake as far as I'm concerned. I know quite a few other people loved Rush, and you just basically don't have good Rush at all in this game. There's a couple of maps where it's not bad. I do like a couple of them, but for the most part, it's just doesn't work very well. And Battlefield 3 focused on Rush, Conquest. Even this Team Deathmatch here is pretty damn good. And I'm not a Team Deathmatch fan in Battlefield series. But in this one, it's just great to run around like a friggin' idiot and shoot people in the face with a slug out of a shotgun. Then, you know, when Battlefield 4 was being designed, apparently they said, hey, let's make some pretty good Conquest levels. And you know what? Quite a few of them are pretty good as far as I'm concerned, assuming you are playing Conquest. It was when they came down to all the other modes, they were like, what do we do? I don't know. Just put an MCOM over here, put another one over there. I guess we'll have Team Deathmatch over there because there's some buildings or something. And all, it just seemed like they rushed the map design like the rest of the game. Because, as we all know, as long as you were playing since the beginning, Battlefield 4 was broken. It's still not 100% fixed now. There's obviously some bugs. It's a lot better. It is definitely a lot better. And you know what? Battlefield 3 isn't flawless. It had a lot of bugs in the beginning too. Maybe not quite as bad. And it's still not 100% fixed because weird things still do happen on occasion. But when they happen, it's not as frustrating for some reason. I don't know how else to explain that. And after going back to Battlefield 3, I'm having more fun than I probably had in Battlefield 4 in the last 6 months. Not saying I didn't have fun. I'm just saying I'm having a blast playing this older game. And apparently I'm not the only one, because still are thousands of people still playing this game. Of course, not as much as Battlefield 4, But we'll see how that fares here in a few weeks to the next month or two when Battlefield Hardline starts to take over. I know some people aren't going to leave. I know some people aren't going to leave Battlefield 3 or Bad Company 2 just because they want their tank fixed. And you know what? I'll probably be coming back. And I don't want to make this sound like I really, really hated Battlefield 4 and it was just terrible, because it wasn't terrible. It just wasn't as good as Battlefield 3 was. Now, I hope you didn't hate my excessively long video on why Battlefield 4 was a little bit flawed. And if you don't mind me too bad, you can subscribe to me, you can hit the like button, you can also hit that favorite button. Thanks guys for all your support. I hope I didn't annoy anybody too bad with this video.